Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. We're seeing the ugly results in California of riots, basically. And the question I put on the thumbnail, LA riots, when will it end? We know that it begun largely over protests of ICE making arrests and trying to leave the area with prisoners from their arrest, and some protesters, perhaps radical protesters, objected to this and tried to stop ICE, which stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, from removing people from this country who are here illegally. ICE, of course, insists that they're going after the worst of the worst criminals that are here illegally. And the other side, of course, disputes that. As a result, President Donald Trump has deployed 2,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines in LA, and protests now are erupting in parts of California and Texas. The LA riots or Los Angeles protests are going on as another 2,000 National Guard troops, along with 700 Marines, are headed to the ground zero on orders from President Donald Trump. Additional protests against immigration raids continued in several other cities, including San Francisco and Santa Ana in California, and Dallas and Austin in Texas. President Trump has pledged to deport record numbers of people who are in the country illegally and to lock down the U.S.-Mexico border, setting the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE Border Enforcement Agency a daily goal of arresting at least 3,000 migrants. The escalating military presence has evoked sharp criticism from Democratic Party Governor in the state of California, Gavin Newsom, as the Los Angeles police chief claimed the situation creates logistical challenges for safety handling protests. So part of these logistical, and as you could see, many try to keep saying these are peaceful protests, but throwing bricks and rocks at police and ICE and National Guard is not peaceful. You can see all of these fires along the protest routes, destroying public property, looting. That is not even part of protesting. That is part of violence. That is part of perhaps people that have nothing to do with protesting, perhaps paid agitators taking part in these protests. So we're going to dig into this and look at some of what's going on in LA right now. While we do, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your service dog, hold on to your cup of coffee. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, we're deep into the NBA and NHL finals, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything, with updated odds on Major League Baseball, UFC and boxing, to tennis and NFL futures. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. One of the things that we can point out, and no doubt has an effect on these riots, is the status of California and Los Angeles, a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. So what does that mean in response to these riots? Mostly peaceful, as they say. That's coined by the press. Mostly peaceful riots, as we see fires and bricks being thrown and all kinds of riots, people doing illegal things, attacking the police and ICE. So what do we need in the city of Los Angeles, and what do we need from the governor of California? Well, first thing we need is something called leadership, which neither one of them, Gavin Newsom nor the mayor of California, exhibit whatsoever. And I'm going to put the mayor up on the screen in an interview that she did yesterday with CNN. And you can judge for yourself. This is, of course, the same mayor that led or did not lead when they had all those horrific fires in LA. Let me put the interview up on the screen and we'll watch a little bit of it here.
What are you expecting on that front?
Well, I just have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern, because people in the city have a rapid response network. If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so it's just.
So there you go. People in the city have a rapid response to protesting when ICE is seen in the city. So here you have the mayor backing up the protesters when being a sanctuary city in itself is illegal. It's against federal law. So she's taking this position. So what kind of trust, when ICE gets in trouble, for example, if they're attacked by the crowd, the LA police and the sheriff's department have orders not to assist ICE. So in essence, officers who all wear blue and internationally all over this world will defend each other, will not in this city and in this state because of the policies of politicians. Let me go back to her interview.
It's a recipe for pandemonium that is completely unnecessary. Nothing was happening here. Los Angeles was peaceful before Friday. When we find out when and where the other raids are going to happen, that will determine how the police respond.
Mayor Bassett's Wolf Blitzer here in the Situation Room as well. The state of California, as you well know, is expected to file a formal lawsuit over President Trump's deployment of the National Guard, perhaps as early as today. Your own police chief says the level of violence he's seeing in Los Angeles is, quote, disgusting. So why not welcome more boots on the ground?
Well, no, I think the issue here is state power and state sovereignty. And so we do not believe, and what the governor is doing is separate from what's happening in the city. But what was the reason that the president had to take the power from the governor and federalize the National Guard? The night before this action was taken, there was a protest that got a little unruly. Late at night, it was 100 people. 27 people were arrested. There wasn't a reason for this. That is the concern. And if there was, the way it happens traditionally is that requests are made on the local level of the governor to send National Guard troops. No request came from the city of Los Angeles. What has happened now is an entirely different situation.
You know, and speaking of now, there are also, about 500 active duty U.S. Marines over at Camp Pendleton, not too far away, awaiting possible orders
For
to
what?
mobilize. Governor Newsom has
Right,
said that,
and
let me just point out, Mayor, Governor Newsom has said that President Trump is, quote, putting fuel on the fire. And you've called the deployment of National Guard troops to your city a chaotic escalation. Why is this an escalation?
Well, again, it's an escalation that didn't have to happen. Why were there raids? You know, we had been told that he was going to go after violent criminals. It wasn't a drug den. It was a Home Depot. It was places where people are working. So what was the point of doing this? And then.
So I don't think Mayor Karen Bass gets it. You know, they're enforcing the law, immigration law. OK, and she fully backs the status of sanctuary cities, and she fully backs the protesters, and she's a horrendous leader, if you could even call her a leader. But she's also not admitting that she's blaming it on the response of the National Guard. And even the Los Angeles police chief said the violence was out of control, but she doesn't acknowledge that. Only 100 people were rioting. How'd she like to be hit in the head with a brick? But it's like not understandable that they don't get it. They really don't get it. But because it's all, and in a way, I'm not totally backing the response to this, but I think when law enforcement gets attacked and then say they're not being backed up by the local police because they have orders not to back up ICE, then you probably have to call in federal agencies like, the Federal National Guard. And Trump has just deployed 700 Marines.
The alert, President Trump calling in additional National Guard members and 700 Marines to respond to the violence and anti-ICE riots in Los Angeles.
So let's get to Jonathan Hunt, who's live on the ground in L.A. What's it looking like this morning, Jonathan?
Well, Ainsley, frankly, it is a lot less tense on the streets of downtown L.A. this morning than it was just 24 hours ago. We were standing here in front of the Metropolitan Detention Center yesterday morning talking to you guys. This entire street was blocked off. National Guard troops were stationed right across it. Now, as you see there's just a handful of those National Guard troops out the front of the Metropolitan Detention Center. So it is a different situation this morning. You definitely feel a lessening of the tension. Having said that, that is not to say that there were not intense clashes once again last night throughout downtown LA. Thousands of protesters were once again roaming the streets, trying to damage federal buildings. They were stopped from doing so by the National Guard, who ranged themselves in front of a cluster of federal buildings here. And then the LAPD, along with the LA Sheriff's Department, California Highway Patrol, ran a pretty efficient operation, separating those groups from each other, getting them into smaller and smaller groups, effectuating arrests and using tear gas, using flashbang grenades, and in some cases rubber bullets to maintain control. Meantime, U.S. Marines are on the way here. They left their base at 29 Palms yesterday. That's in the Palm Springs area east of Los Angeles. We understood that they staged overnight at Naval Station Seal Beach, but they should be on the streets of LA later today. That prompted this ex-post from Governor Gavin Newsom, who said, quote, "The Secretary of Defense is illegally deploying them onto American streets so Trump can have a talking point at his parade this weekend. It's a blatant abuse of power. We will sue to stop this." But given what we saw on Sunday, the very intense clashes, and the slightly less so on Monday, there is an argument that President Trump can make that the deployment of federal resources is working. In the meantime, the search for those engaged in violent acts on the streets of LA goes on. This man has been a particular target. He was seen on video throwing rocks at law enforcement officers. Well, the Attorney General Pam Bondi announced on Hannity last night that they know who he is. Listen here to the Attorney General.
That guy has just been identified, and they are doing a search warrant on his house as we speak. So you can run, you can't hide. We are coming after you federally. If you assault a police officer, if you rob a store, if you loot, if you spit on a police officer, we're coming after you.
That man's name is Elpidio Reyna. Authorities say they will find him and anyone else who engages in violence. Back to you guys.
So, where do we draw the line here? That's my question. Where do we draw the line? Who is responsible for this? Are the rioters responsible for it? Is ICE responsible for it? Is the deployment of the LA Sheriff, the LAPD, LA Highway Patrol, that they cannot control this by themselves? Thus, the National Guard was called in by the president, not by the governor. Not by the governor, because he's okay with this. I believe he's okay with these riots. So who's to blame? Did the response, the question we have, did the response of the National Guard exacerbate this problem? Or is it just makes sense that the National Guard should respond in defense of property and in defense of other law enforcement officers. That's what we have, because the law enforcement officers are overwhelmed, and perhaps they do need the assistance of the National Guard to defend the public, first of all, to protect property, and to come to the assistance of other law enforcement officers that are overwhelmed. This is Chris Cuomo, who has a little bit of a unique view of this situation.
In Los Angeles, right? Spreading to other cities. If it seems like it's a different world to you, good. That means you're a reasonable person who sees through these agendas. However, if when you look at it, you immediately see your side against the other, that's the problem. Fringe agendas.
See, Cuomo's going to tell us what the problem is. He's a Democrat trying to pretend that he's a middle of the roader. He's definitely, so he's going to tell us what the problem is.
Dominating the dialogue, and now the streets. Let's just call this situation what it is, okay? Nothing good is happening here. There is no high ground. Nothing's going to make anything better. You want to protest ICE? Fine. There are reasons. These riots are intended to stop ICE from conducting immigration raids. But that's not all there is. Mass looting, cop cars and self-driving vehicles set on fire, rioters throwing rocks, shooting fireworks at police. Dozens have been arrested for attempted murder, arson, looting, multiple officers injured. That's not protest, okay? And where are the local leaders? They're complaining about the National Guard showing up, but you think you're in control? When your ICE protest is headed up in instances by Hamas-friendly banners and foreign flags insisting people who aren't here legally shouldn't be removed, and making that point violently, what did you think was going to happen? Even the local police chief says officers are overwhelmed. That is on the mayor and the governor, who apparently would rather bitch about Trump than control their city and condemn the people who are destroying it. Now, I know partisans on the left aren't going to like that, but that's the truth. And the shame is that there is overreach by ICE and the administration. There is reason to protest policies that seem to demonize immigrants, despite them being the lifeblood of communities all over this country, whether they're here legally or not. They're not just going after bad hombres, okay? ICE, and I don't blame the agents per se. The agency is being pushed to get as many as they can, wherever they can, however they can. They are scaring people who are here legally and sending a message that seems to be more about how people entered than what impact they're making here. And that's not what America is about. But again, the people on the streets are doing more than making the point I just made. And when you break the law and act with violence, you become what you oppose, and that's what's happening in Los Angeles. This is fringe politics being played out in real time. Why else would the far right be spreading fake video? Actor James Woods, Senator Ted Cruz, clip viewed over 10 million times. It's from 2020. It's from the BLM riots. It's not from over the weekend. Why isn't the truth enough? Because they're not playing about advancement of the whole. This is just about advantage of one petty side against the other. That's all it is. Now,
I think, I agree with a lot of what Chris Cuomo just said. But, when you have a law enforcement agency that is responding, or they're trying to take police action, for example, and the law is they are trying to remove people that are here illegally. And of course, they will look at this as they will look at this as they're trying to apprehend the worst of the worst, the people that not just here illegally, but the criminals. And I think when you're going for 3,000 apprehensions a day, you're going after more than just the worst of the worst criminals. I think you're going after people who are here illegally. And that is, and as Tom Homan the head of Border Patrol, he says, that is a crime in itself. And I think it exacerbates the situation when you have sanctuary cities that allow people to come into this country that have come in here illegally, and then they get sort of linked up with the bad guys, the criminals, the human traffickers, the robbers, the rapists, and there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people, of course, hardworking people that want to make their lives better. But the position of this administration is that if they came in here illegally, they're going to be deported. And that's where the rubber hits the road.
All right, taking live pictures from the skies now, from the chopper of one of our affiliates there, and it is showing these little skirmishes that are taking place between protesters on the left, and it's the LAPD on the right now. So it's not the members of the National Guard who we'd been playing early today. They're at a different section. We've been showing you pictures of flare-ups between the National Guard and some protesters as well. Dozens of protesters outside a detention facility in downtown LA. So we are now, according to this picture, in a different part of LA that's being controlled or attempted to be controlled by the LAPD. So lines of them on the right, and they're those protesters who are trying to agitate them. It seems as though they're trying to agitate them by hurling whatever verbal muscle they have at them to try and get a reaction to them. So that standoff taking place right now on the streets of Los Angeles as we go into early afternoon. And this all comes after troops, 300 of them, were placed on the streets with orders to stamp out demonstrations that broke out in response to those immigration raids. Sky's Martha Kellner is there.
So, still quite active. We can argue, does the response of the National Guard and of 700 Marines, does this escalate the situation? Or are there powers on the other side that are trying to get professional agitators to exacerbate this situation? That's one of the questions I have. Who is contributing to these riots? Is it organized? That's some of the questions that I have. And one of the things that I fear, and everyone should fear, is that these riots and these protests spread on a national level, and they start taking place in all cities, all sanctuary cities across this country.
Hang on. You got me? Hey, I'm gonna hold on to you. Hey, I'm holding on to you. I feel dizzy, bro. I'm dizzy, bro.
So some pictures from LA, police taking action, the police making arrests. And this is a mixture of police agencies coming to each other's assistance. You know, these, having worked these riots myself, not the ones in LA, ones in New York City, it's quite dangerous. and you never know where projectiles going to come from. We used to call them airmail, things being thrown off the rooftop at police, and it's quite dangerous, So to act like, when the news organizations talk about peaceful protesting, it's quite scary because what is peaceful? Fires, setting fires, throwing bricks, throwing rocks, attacking police? Is that a peaceful protest? And I think that's the delineation we need, is what is peaceful. And of course, we in this country believe in the right to protest. Of course, the freedom of speech, the right, and that's okay. But what does protesting include? Does it include starting fires, looting stores, attacking police, throwing rocks? Does any of those things exist in protesting?
This morning, showing a wild night of looting in downtown LA. Overall, there were 7 stores that were hit. Many of those stores targeted were on Broadway.
Eyewitness News reporter Carly Gomez live in downtown LA. Carly, what's the latest where you are?
Yeah, early this morning right now, what we're dealing with is mostly clear scenes. A lot of the looters have left, but now all that's left is a lot of glass and a lot of repair work to be done. What you can see here is people starting to repair this Adidas store, as most of that was kicked in. 2 of the doors actually shattered and brought to the ground. Now this is being put up, the plywood here. Stores have been looted overnight with some arrests made as officers fought off some of the suspects. Earlier this morning, police staged at least 4 major intersections with police presence here on Broadway, but have since left. We know overnight the Adidas store, a jewelry store, Apple store, shoe palace, a dispensary, not just 1 but 2, and a pharmacy have been broken into and looted. Most of the stores on Broadway have been looted. I mean, a lot of them are multiple stores the majority of them have been on Broadway. More buildings and police vehicles have also been defaced. Mayor Bass holding a briefing at the Emergency Operations Center today to update us all on protests as Marines are on the way.
You can't possibly be supporting immigrants and vandalize our city, and understand that if you do that, and it is 100% unacceptable, you will be arrested, and it might not happen that day. So don't think because you went home that night that you are free. There's a lot of videotape, there's investigations that will take place, and you will be held accountable and frankly need to be separated from the people who are really fighting on behalf of our immigrant community.
Trump sending in 700 Marines and another 2,000 National Guard members. We know Marines left 29 Palms last night, and they are here now. We have not seen them staged yet. No timeline on when the National Guard will arrive. Now, live back out here, some of the crowds from overnight have mostly left. What we're seeing here is a lot of glass on the ground. This is another dispensary that was broken into overnight on Broadway. This is MedMen. You can see all of that glass just shattered across the floor. Some of the products lying there as people just went in, ransacked, grabbed what they could and go. And actually, during our first live shot earlier this morning, we were down by the Adidas store. And then just in the distance, we could see just a group of people start breaking right back into the store and pulling out as much as they could. The police at that point in time had already left the scene. So what we've been noticing here is as soon as police take another call, another group of people end up going to another store.
You're looking at least 4 different
locations. You also have to ask, are these protests, are these riots organized? And if they are, who's behind them? There were reports that someone came by and they were handing out masks, very expensive masks, to the rioters. That, of course, is indicative of a planned organization to organize these rioters. And, you know, it's a difference between a protester and a rioter. I just want to make that clear. But clearly, when you see the looting of stores, the fires being set, there's some organization here. So, folks, we're going to try to bring you as much as we can on these as the days move on, and hopefully these riots will stop and it won't spread across this great country. Folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.